This video is the first video in the first set of slides for Chapter 18 on public relations. I'm going to go over kind of some of the basics, what public relations is, and some of the key terms that you should know when we're kind of discussing public relations. So, one question you might have is, why are we studying public relations in a journalism class? And the parallel to that is, why do public relations programs require public relations majors to take journalism classes? Well, first and foremost is that the writing skills that you develop in journalism and in journalism classes have great transferable skills and are incredibly necessary for jobs in both journalism and in public relations. One of the key things you're going to be doing, no matter which avenue you go into, or even if you're working in media in general, is you're going to need to be able to have really good, strong writing skills. And they are interrelated disciplines. Journalists will rely on public relations professionals. Public relations people need journalists to get some of the words out. So there's a back and forth between them. And there's definitely transferable knowledge between those skills, which is why there's a lot of crossover between jobs, between journalism and public relations. You'll have people who trained as journalists and who worked as journalists going and working for public relations firms or as a public relations consultant for a company. And similarly, you have people who are in PR who then maybe develop strong relationships with people in journalism, then going and becoming journalists. And again, I can't stress enough that the writing skills that you develop in both programs would be necessary and are kind of some of the biggest, most important skills that you can learn and bring into any field you end up going into. So what do we mean when we're talking about public relations? There's different ways you can approach thinking about public relations, and even in terms of what popularly we understand that term to mean, and whether we even continue to use that term or whether it morphs into others. The Public Relations Society of America defines it as a strategic communication process that builds mutually beneficial relationships between organization and their publics. And again, one of the things we're going to stress is that there is more than one public. There's more than one audience for any PR message. And strategic communication, in a way, has become a term used to kind of envelop public relations within it, which we'll get to in a minute. You've got, the book points out this other quote by Holmes saying the public relations is the discipline of managing the relationship between an organization and the people upon whom it depends for success, so in other words, their publics, and with whom it interacts, and ensuring that those relationships facilitate the organization's strategic objectives. You'll notice that there's a lot of verbiage that's the same between the two, but in Holmes's definition, he points out the fact that the organization has a vested interest and has a stake in this. It isn't just something that is being done out of the goodness of the hearts of the organization, but the organization has strategic objectives that it wants to achieve, and that it's managing these relationships in order to achieve them. So that's something that no matter which side of the PR journalist divide you end up on, you need to keep in mind. So PR has a different approach to news than maybe we've talked about up until this point. There are significant crossovers between how public relations professionals and journalism professionals will approach writing a particular news story. So both are going to be focusing on reaching an intended audience. Now, if you're a good PR professional, you're going to identify the audience of that particular journalistic outlet, and you're going to write in a way that wants to reach that audience, or you're going to reach out to people whose audience aligns with the audience you want to reach. In both, you're going to need social media expertise and other direct-to-consumer skills. It's becoming more and more of an issue for journalists, as we've discussed in the past few weeks, and that's definitely a necessary skill for PR, so totally transferable crossover skills there. And in both journalism and in PR, practitioners have to be prepared to use all types of media. So again, we're preparing you might be starting off as a newspaper writer, but newspapers have online presence. They have podcasts, they have YouTube channels. And again, if you're working for a blog, you're going to need to be able to write for all kinds of media. Similarly, PR professionals are going to have to do the exact same thing. But there are also key differences. First and foremost, PR professionals are not unbiased. They are coming from the side, as we've discussed in the definition, they're coming from the side of their company. They have objectives that they want to achieve. Now, that doesn't mean that there isn't a code of ethics that they adhere to, but they're going to use persuasive writing. And if you are a PR professional, that's a thing that you can take advantage of, but you need to be very cognizant of how you use this persuasive writing and adhere to the ethics code of that organization. Again, that's the Public Relations Society of America that I'm particularly referring to here. And again, if you're a journalist, you need to be aware that no matter how good intentioned the news source you're getting from PR, that it is always going to be done in a way to achieve the aims of the organization. They also, when you are a PR professional, you are going to be writing to more than one audience, where if you are a journalist, usually your audience is going to be pretty set by whatever publication you're writing for at that time. If you're a PR professional, you need to be aware that you've got multiple masters. You've got the public. You also might need to be concerned about the government. You've got internal stakeholders. You've got shareholders. So you need to understand how all of these different voices that you're speaking through kind of interlock and work together. You need to write tailored approaches to each of those audiences. And those audiences will include journalists. So when you're writing a news release, you need to be aware of how to present it in a way that a journalist is going to be most likely to take it on and use it. You don't want to present them with something that they're going to throw away, because then you've wasted your time and their time. The more you waste their time, the less likely they are to pay attention to the next thing that you send them. So I just want to go over a few key terms, and then I'm going to wrap up this set of slides in this section. So these key terms are deliberate, planned, performance, public interest, and two-way communication. Oh, and management function. So I'm going to go through and give you a short definition of what I mean by each of those. So in this case, deliberate means I'm referring to the fact that the PR activity is intentional. It's designed to influence, to gain understanding, to provide feedback, and to obtain feedback from a specific group of people. It's not something that's done haphazardly. And it's organized, it's systematic, it requires research and analysis. If you don't want to have this deliberate thing and then not have follow-through. And then that follow-through is going to be kind of tied into performance. It's going to be based on actual policies, or you're going to use that research as a basis for policies. You do need to understand that there is a public interest. There is a public side to things. So you want whatever your public relations is to be mutually beneficial to the organization and to the public. The public are going to have much better buy-in if they think that it is beneficial to them, but then you need it to also benefit the organization since you're putting your time and effort into it. And so this way, this kind of then ties into the fact that you've got two-way communication, that you need to get feedback from those public stakeholders, from the outside world, in order to have good two-way communication and to have that public relations relationship be healthy and to be beneficial to the organization as well. But remember that this is going to become an integral part of decision making by management. So when you get that two-way communication, it needs to be actionable, and it needs to be something that people can make decisions that they can base policy on. So remember that there is a relationship between public relations and marketing. And so just kind of wrapping up that, what is the definition part of this, that more and more we see integrated marketing communications, IMC, and strategic communications, or StratCom. We're finding ways that we're going to link together our public relations, our relationship between the organization and the public, to our marketing and our advertising. And that this is a way that we're looking towards the future, and that's how we're building in things like social media and using our kind of influencers and using direct communication with customers as a way to build brands as ways of reaching out and building these like interlocking relationships between the organization that you might work for and the public that it serves, or the publics that it serves.